everybody. Welcome to the Healmore Girls. Today I want to talk about making discipline a priority in your home from a very young age, actually. It starts when they're little. Kids need discipline. They need the security of what discipline means. It's a foundation for them. It's a fencing around dangerous areas that they don't understand. It gives them actual security and being able to make good choices as they get older, because there's a foundation of mom's got you. Here's the boundaries. Here's the guidelines. And ultimately, when they go off into society, we all have guidelines. We have speed limits. We have stores that close. You can't just break in and go shopping after it's closed. And then scripturally, we have a code of conduct as Christians to live by that the Word of God lines out. And so we have to teach our kids from a young age that there are proper behaviors and ways of doing things, and everybody's is a little different. So here's just some of the ideas that I had when my girls were little that helped train them to be beautiful, healthy adults. And honestly, they were kids that other people wanted to be around, which I think is super important, that they're pleasant, that your children are an asset to the community, and therefore a testimony of a Christ-centered family home. And that's just really, really important. So some of the things that I did started when they were really young, standing in the corner. There's an old school idea that I hope some preschool moms out there are like, oh my goodness, yes, that's genius. There are corners everywhere. And if my girls were sitting here, they would tell you they stood in corners from airports to churches to grocery stores. When we would go looking at houses or home shows, they stood in corners. I mean, it just, if they were, just not behaving or talking ugly or not listening or following rules, or if they just needed to calm themselves down, sometimes a corner is a great, okay, let's just go think about. I was never a big sit and time out where they could be super distracted by other things. Both my girls were extremely social, so they still felt a part of everything if they were watching. And so, no, little nose in the corner. There's corners everywhere. It doesn't have to be a special chair or whatever. Oh my goodness, I had so many moms that would stop and say, that's genius. I forgot about standing in the corner. So I grew up standing in the corner. My girls grew up standing in the corner. It's a great way to refocus, distract. They were really little. Little kids are, habitually will go back to the dog bowl or a light socket. Even if you've got little guards on it, you have to teach them that it's not a toy, because the next place you go to might not have a guard in it. And so it's a great distraction for even little bitties to put them in a corner until they forget what they were messing with that they shouldn't have been. Obviously, that's not the big ones, like lying and things like that deserved a different discipline. But standing in the corner is a great one. Also, when I say make discipline a priority, that means there are some really important years where you have to let them know that you're in charge, and that they're children and they shouldn't be in charge. And this is a whole new way of parenting, that they're in charge and they can make decisions. And here's the problem with that. They aren't capable really of making decisions. I call it the Chuck E. Cheese syndrome. Little kids will play all these games at Chuck E. Cheese, and then they'll go to the counter afterwards with their little tickets to buy a toy. And it takes them an hour to choose a toy that is always going to be broken before you even get to the car. That is the ability that they have of decision making. They can't make decisions. They aren't capable of it yet mentally to make good, well-informed decisions. So we need to, age appropriate, obviously, allow them to make decisions as they grow and they have a foundation of, if I make a wrong decision, I'm going to fall on a strong foundation that my parents have provided by making decisions for me when I was 4. So that's really important, that's just a priority, that you recognize that there's not really the capability of making big decisions when you're 4 and 5 years old. Also making it a priority is when you're in a store and somehow our kids know that they're in public, and what's mom going to do if I begin to throw a fit or sass or just be a 4-year-old? Here's the deal. I would pick my child up and we would leave the store. I have left grocery carts full. I told them, I'm sorry, I have a child who is not behaving and we have to go take care of this. And they learned really quick that one of the most important things in my life was not getting those groceries paid for, but was disciplining them in no matter what situation it was. We would leave and go take care of it, whether that was that we had to have a talking to, or we needed a SWAT, or we needed to stand in a corner. I never hushed them, shushed them, got aggravated with them in public because I just didn't have time to deal with them. No, deal with your children. If they need discipline, let them know that that's on the top of your priority, that their behavior matters, that how they choose to discipline themselves is important. It's the most important. And so I would just leave grocery stores if they weren't behaving, apologizing along the way. I'm sorry for the milk in the cart. I didn't just leave it in the middle. I would take it to somebody and say, I'm really sorry, gotta go. It's really important. When they got a little bit older, maybe elementary school, they're, siblings 2 years apart, they had times where they would just get into a cycle of bad communication, nitpicking, nagging, not being kind, ugly talking. You hear it in your house every day. We would have to sit down, not in the middle of a fight, but in a kneecap conversation, which I'm sure you guys have heard me say this before. When things are going good, sit down, have a chat, and say, hey, what's going on? Let's restart, because we've gotten into a cycle of bad behavior. I think we do this in marriages, honestly. You get kind of in this rhythm that's just unhealthy and unkind. And so we take a step back and say, we're resetting your relationship with your sister, because right now it's just unkind and not nice. And then the other one acts back, and then it just kind of is back and forth. And it can go on for days and weeks. And it's like, no, we're going to reset this. In doing that, I would actually not ground them. I tried to pick my language where the punishment fit the crime. If they got grounded, then they really deserve to be grounded. Nitpicking and fighting with your sister, I didn't necessarily ground them, but friends were a privilege. And I said that a lot. Friends are a privilege. And if you cannot get along with your sister and love her, then you don't get the privilege of hanging out with your friends. And so we lived on a great little cul-de-sac when the girls were little, and they had lots of friends all around that would come knocking on the door every day. And when the girls were in this just unhealthy cycle, we didn't allow them to play with their friends, because friends are a privilege. And they got to where they actually enjoyed their sister time. And even when they were, they'd go through this, bad cycle, and then we would go to reset and we would not have our friends for a period of time. Then the friends would come knocking and they go, no, we're having sister time. So they actually really enjoyed that reset, because they were miserable too. And they just didn't know how to stop and reset, because they were 6 and 8 or, whatever. And so mom would just sit them down and say, we're going to reset our attitude towards our sister. We're going to take a break from our friends, because friends are privilege. And we're going to do chores, and we're going to play, and we're going to sing, and we're going to spend time together and love each other. And so they really appreciated that, because they didn't know how to do it themselves. You have to make it the priority. So it's really, really, really important. Also, my kids had bedtimes. I know this is very unpopular in the summertime when all the neighborhood kids are out playing until very, very late, because the sun is up for a very long time. But kids need their rest and they need their sleep. And this was well into elementary years, 4th grade, 5th grade. They had their bedtimes. There were obviously special occasions, where they would stay out late, or, ice cream with friends or whatever after bedtime. But 90% of the time, even through the summer, when it was bright outside, they were in bed. And they could hear their friends playing, and they'd be like, why are we in bed? And I'm like, because it's your bedtime, and I want you to be pleasant, loving people. And isn't that we need to be as adults as pleasant, loving people? And if we're not getting our rest, sometimes we're not pleasant, loving people. And so why do we turn around and let our kids stay up till all hours of the night because all of their friends are out playing and the sun is still up? And then the next day we're yelling at them and we're aggravated with them and they're fighting with each other and we're just over it all. Okay, guess what? Make discipline a priority. And the discipline of a bedtime is so incredibly healthy for young children. They will be more pleasant. You will interact with them in a much more pleasant way. Life will be so much easier. And honestly, they were more pleasant with their neighbors. I mean, the other kids would be throwing fits, and I'm like, they need to go to bed. So make discipline a priority. And when I say that, I don't just mean, discipline from, no, like spankings or punishment, but discipline as in a disciplined life. The other thing is that I just think is so important, and again, this next generation of parenting isn't really thinking that it's important, but it is. When you're in a restaurant and you're having dinner and somebody's little kid is up running around, it's just rude. Children should not just run amok. I don't know how to say it. It's one of my big pet peeves, honestly. And that's just discipline within the home. And it's healthy. Train your kids to sit at a table and enjoy conversation. If they're toddlers, then they can learn in a very short amount of time to eat and then sit there with a toy or a book while you finish up and then let them down. And if that means you have to rush through your own meal so that the meal is shorter, your time is shorter together, then do that. But don't expect them to go to a dinner, a nice restaurant where they're never expected to sit at a table at home and have dinner as a family. And then you're going to sit there and have an hour and a half long dinner, and this 3-year-old is going to be going crazy. Okay, discipline them at home to sit at the table and have family dinner together. And then when you take them out, it will be very natural. Also, we didn't go out to dinner with friends that we knew would have long extended conversations when our kids were very young, because frankly, it's just not really fair to them. They're not capable of sitting there like an adult is for that long, and you're expecting something out of them that they aren't mature enough to be able to handle. So we just didn't do that. If we went on a date night, then we didn't take the kids, which was rare because we didn't have family around. And babysitters were expensive whenever, we were young marrieds with 2 little kids. So we didn't go out to a lot of restaurants with a lot of friends. We would do ice cream dates, or we would have them over, or we would go to the park. But we just didn't go out to dinners a lot when our kids were very young. When we did, we would go someplace that was quicker and our kids could sit there because they sat at the table at home. And that's just a great foundation to start anyway for family dinners, which is super important. The older they get, the more life is going to get busy. Sports activities are going to pick up. Find a time to sit back down and make that a norm in your home every once in a while. It's really important. It's a great discipline to have within your home. Also, speaking and not speaking. This might be Mackenzie's biggest pet peeve of children. My girls were not allowed to monopolize a conversation within adults. And it's not, I didn't, children are to be seen and not heard. I wasn't like that. I mean, there's a balance, and I think that's the pendulum swing, as there was a generation of kids don't say anything to kids completely rule the entire conversation, no matter what adult is there, no matter what's going on, no, there's a healthy boundary there where your kids should learn to respect adults and their conversations. And that's healthy. We all have to learn proper respect for living in a community. Thanks for joining me today as we discussed discipline as a priority. Let me know what you guys are thinking and the disciplines that you have in your home. And make sure you like, subscribe, follow us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.